Feynman was interested. He'd learned about sensory deprivation. People described hallucinations, out-of-body experiences, changed states of awareness. He wanted to feel it himself, not because he trusted anything mystical, but because he wanted to grasp what his brain did when it had no outside input. So he stepped into the tank, the lid shut, darkness, quiet, floating, weightless. At first, nothing strange. He could sense his body. He knew where his arms and legs were positioned. He felt ordinary, normal, just floating there in the warm darkness. But after roughly 20 minutes, something odd started occurring. His awareness of where his body was began to fade away slowly. His arm felt like it was somewhere it wasn't, displaced in space. Then he couldn't sense his arm at all, as if it had vanished. Then he couldn't recall if he had arms at all. His feeling of boundary, where his body stopped and the water started, became fuzzy, unclear, impossible to determine. Then it vanished entirely, leaving him without any sense of physical form. For a moment he felt something he'd never felt before in his entire life. He had no body whatsoever, or rather he couldn't find his body anywhere in his experience. He was still aware, still reasoning, still existing as a conscious being, but he had no spatial reference. No sense of being here versus there, no coordinates in space. It scared him at first, this complete loss of embodiment. Then it intrigued him deeply because it showed something basic and fundamental about human experience. The sensation of being positioned in space, of having a body, of being inside your head looking out, that's built by your brain, moment by moment. It's not a given truth. It's not automatic or permanent. It's something your brain constructs continuously from sensory information flowing in. Remove the information and the construction collapses like a house of cards. Right now, where do you feel like you are? Most people answer the same way, behind my eyes, inside my head, looking out through my eyes like they're windows onto the world. But consider this carefully. Your eyes aren't windows at all. They're sensors, biological cameras. Light particles, photons, hit them, trigger complex chemical reactions in receptor cells which transmit electrical signals down the optic nerve to the rear of your brain. Your visual cortex sits at the back of your skull, in the occipital lobe. That's where the signals travel to. That's where visual processing occurs, not behind your eyes at the front, but behind your head at the back. Think about that for a moment. So why do you feel like you're behind your eyes? Because that's where the senses are positioned. Your brain builds a model of the world, and in that model it positions you, the observer, the experiencer, at the spot of the primary senses. Eyes are forward-facing, so you feel forward-facing, like you're looking out from behind your eyes. But this is a trick, a helpful trick, but a trick nonetheless. Your brain is building a mental map of space continuously. In that map, it needs to position a reference point, a "you are here" marker like on a shopping mall directory, and it places that marker at the sensory focal point, which happens to be the eyes. But there's no real you there actually sitting behind your eyes. There's no tiny person inside your head looking out at a screen. That's the homunculus mistake, the little man fallacy. If there were a tiny person in your head, viewing images on some internal screen, that tiny person would need their own brain with another tiny person inside it looking at their own screen, and so on forever in an infinite loop. It makes no logical sense. What's really occurring is your brain is processing sensory information and building a model of the world. And part of that model is a sense of viewpoint, a sensation of being positioned at a specific point in space. But that point is random. It's wherever your brain chooses to place it based on sensory input. Let me demonstrate how simple it is to fool your brain about where you are positioned in space. There's a famous experiment called the rubber hand trick. You sit at a table in a laboratory. Your real hand is concealed from view behind a screen or box. A rubber hand, a realistic-looking fake hand made of silicone, is positioned in front of you on the table where you can observe it clearly. A researcher uses two identical paintbrushes. They brush your real hand, which you can't see because it's hidden, and the rubber hand, which you can see right in front of you, at the same time, in the same rhythm, stroking them both simultaneously. Within minutes, something odd occurs. You start to sense like the rubber hand is your hand. You feel the touches on the rubber hand. When someone threatens to stab the rubber hand with a needle, you flinch. Your brain thinks the rubber hand is part of your body. Why? Because your brain is combining sensory information. Visual information says this hand is being touched. Touch information says my hand is being touched. The timing matches perfectly, so your brain decides that hand is my hand. It doesn't matter that the hand is rubber. It doesn't matter that it's in a different spot than your real hand. The connection is strong enough that your brain accepts it. This demonstrates that your sense of body ownership, which body parts are yours, is built by your brain from connections in sensory information. It's not hardwired. It's guessed. And if body ownership is built, then your sense of being inside your body is also built. There's no natural reason you should feel like you're positioned where your body is. That sensation comes from sensory integration. Alter the sensory input, and you can alter where you feel positioned. In 2007, neuroscientist Henrik Ernen did a groundbreaking experiment that literally shifted people outside their bodies using technology. He put participants carefully in an fMRI scanner machine. They wore virtual reality goggles over their eyes. The goggles displayed them a view from behind their own body, a camera filming them from 6 feet back so they could observe themselves lying in the scanner from an external viewpoint. Then a researcher used 2 identical sticks, or rods. One stick touched the person's actual chest, which they couldn't see because they were looking at the screen. The other stick touched the empty air 6 feet back where the camera was positioned, moving below the camera's view of their body in the same rhythm. The person observed the stick touching the air beneath the camera and at the same time felt a physical touch on their chest. Visual touch happening here at camera spot in the air. Physical touch happening here on my chest, on my actual body. Within seconds, people described feeling like they were positioned where the camera was located. They felt like they were floating 6 feet behind their body, looking down at themselves lying there. It was a complete shift in their sense of self-location. Brain scans verified this. The region that normally handles self-location, the temporal parietal junction, displayed activity matching the person's sense of self-being at the camera spot, not at the body spot. This is a complete out-of-body experience created in a laboratory with a simple trick of connected sensory input. The effects are deep. Your sense of being inside your body is just a best guess by your brain based on sensory information. Change the information, and your brain will change the guess. There's no you that's naturally positioned anywhere. There's just a brain making guesses about where the self should be positioned in its model of reality. When Feynman came out from the isolation tank that day in 1954, he was transformed. Not spiritually, not mystically, but mentally. He understood that consciousness, the sensation of being an experiencing subject, doesn't have a position in space. It's not in your head. It's not in your body. It's not anywhere. What has a position is your brain, a physical thing made of neurons, chemicals, electrical activity. That brain is positioned in your skull, which is positioned in space. But consciousness, the personal experience, the what it feels like to be you, that's not a thing that can have a position. It's a process, an activity, a design of neural firing. And processes don't have positions in the same way things do. You can say the process of burning is happening in this fire. But burning itself isn't positioned anywhere. It's what's happening. It's the activity. Same with consciousness. You can say the process of consciousness is happening in this brain, but consciousness itself isn't positioned anywhere. It's what the brain is doing. The sensation of being positioned in space, that's part of the content of consciousness. It's something your brain creates. But it's not where consciousness actually is, because consciousness doesn't have a where. This is difficult to understand because we're so used to thinking of ourselves as things, objects, beings with positions, but we're not. We're processes, activities, designs. And designs don't live in space. They live in the structure of whatever is showing them. But it gets even stranger because your mind isn't even limited to your brain. There's a theory in brain science called the extended mind idea. The concept is that your thinking processes, your thinking, your reasoning, your memory, don't stop at your skull. They reach into the world. When you write something down to remember it, that notebook becomes part of your thinking system. The details are stored outside, but it's functionally part of your memory. When you use a calculator to solve a math question, the calculator becomes part of your thinking processing. The calculation happens outside your brain, but it's part of your thinking process. When you use your smartphone to find directions, the GPS becomes part of your spatial thinking system. The edges of your mind are unclear. Brain scientists call this situated thinking. Your mind is placed in the surroundings. It uses tools. It transfers processing to outside devices. It's spread out. Feynman grasped this naturally. He was known for working problems out on paper, not because he couldn't do them in his head, but because the paper was an addition to his thinking. Writing things down made them movable in ways that pure mental pictures couldn't. He'd say, I can't think about this problem without sketching it. The sketch isn't a picture of my thoughts. It is my thoughts made visible. Your mind isn't trapped in your brain. It reaches into your tools, your surroundings, your social interactions. When you're talking to someone, the talk is a thinking process that involves both brains, plus the language structure you're both using. Where is your mind? Not in one place. It's spread across your brain, your body, your tools, and the surroundings you're placed in. Here's something that troubled Feynman for years. The binding question. Your brain handles different parts of awareness in different regions. Color is handled in one area, movement in another, shape in another, sound in yet another. So when you look at a red ball bouncing, your visual brain handles red in one place, circular shape in another place, and movement in a third place. Your hearing brain handles the bouncing sound. Question. Who or what brings it all together into a single experience of a red ball bouncing and making a sound? There's no single place in the brain where all this data comes together. No central handler, no control room, no theater where it all gets displayed. And yet you experience it as single. You don't experience color over here and shape over there and movement somewhere else. You experience a single, clear, unified awareness. How? Scientists still don't fully grasp this. The main theory is that timing of neural firing creates the binding. When neurons in different regions fire in sync at the same speed with matched timing, the brain treats their outputs as belonging to the same thing. But here's what this means for the question of where your mind is positioned. If there's no central place where awareness comes together, then there's no single spot of conscious experience. Your mind is spread across your brain. It's happening in many places at the same time. And the unity you experience, the sensation that there's one you having one clear experience, that's also built. It's a feature of the design, not a position. Feynman would say, you're not in your brain. You are your brain. Or rather, you are what your brain is doing. And what it's doing is happening in many places at once, coordinated but not centered. In the 1960s, brain surgeons treated serious epilepsy by cutting the corpus callosum, the bundle of fibers linking the left and right halves of the brain. This stops seizures from spreading, but it also creates something odd, two separate streams of consciousness in the same skull. The left half controls the right side of the body and language. The right half controls the left side of the body and is mostly silent. After the surgery, you can show a split brain patient a word in their left visual area, which goes to the right half. They can't say what they saw because the right half can't speak, but they can point to the matching object with their left hand, show them something in the right visual area, left half, and they can tell you what it is, but they might not be able to draw it well with their right hand. Two separate streams of handling, two separate awareness centers in one skull. So where is the mind? There are two of them now, one in the left half, one in the right. Philosopher Thomas Nagel asked, is there a single you in a split brain patient, or are there two separate yous? Nobody knows. The patients themselves say feeling normal, but tests show that the two halves can have different likes, different knowledge, different goals. One patient's left hand would try to put on a shirt while the right hand tried to take it off. Two goals, two agents, one body. This destroys the idea that there's a single unified self positioned somewhere in the brain. The self is built by connection. Cut the connections and you get two selves. Feynman found this deeply disturbing. If you can create two minds by cutting some wires, then minds aren't things. They're designs, and designs can be split, joined, changed. There's nothing special about the unity of self. It's just biology. So where is your mind really? It's not in your head. That's where your brain is. But your mind, the personal experience, the sensation of being you, isn't a physical thing with a position. Your brain creates a model of reality. In that model, it shows your body, and it creates a sense of viewpoint, a perspective from which the model is watched. That perspective feels like you, and it seems to be positioned behind your eyes. But that's just a feature of the model. The you in the model isn't the same as the consciousness feeling the model. Consciousness doesn't have a position because it's not a thing. It's a process, an activity, what the brain does. You can ask, where is this brain activity happening? Answer, in the brain, spread across many regions. But you can't ask, where is the consciousness? Because consciousness is the activity. It doesn't have a separate position. This is what Feynman realized in the isolation tank. When sensory input disappeared, his sense of being positioned in space dissolved, and he was still aware, still thinking, still feeling, but with no sense of where, because the where was part of the content of consciousness, not a quality of consciousness itself. Consciousness is what happens when a complex enough information handling system models itself and its surroundings. And modeling doesn't happen somewhere. It just happens. This isn't just thinking talk. Grasping that your mind has no position has real effects. First, it explains out-of-body experiences. They're not proof of souls or spirit travel. They're proof that the brain's sense of self-position is built and can be broken. Drugs, meditation, shock, sensory loss, brain harm, all can break the normal building of self-position. When they do, you might feel like you're outside your body, but you're not. There's no you that can be outside anything. Your brain is just building an unusual self-model. Second, it explains why brain harm can change personality. If you are your brain's activity, then harm to your brain changes you. There's no separate soul that stays untouched. Harm the front part and you become hasty. Harm the side part and you lose memories. You change because your brain changed. Third, it brings up questions about identity. If your mind is a design, not a thing, then what makes you you? If we could copy the design, upload your brain to a computer, would that be you or a copy? Feynman didn't have answers. He'd say, these are deep questions. Maybe they don't have answers. Or maybe the answers are more subtle than we can currently grasp. But he was clear about one thing. You are not a ghost in a machine. You're not a soul living in a body. You are the machine. You are the physical processes happening in your brain. And those processes don't happen somewhere inside you. They are you. In the last years of his life, Feynman thought about consciousness often. He knew he was dying. Cancer had returned, this time final, and he thought about what it meant to be a conscious being facing the end of consciousness. He wrote to a friend, I am my brain. When my brain stops, I stop. There's no me that goes on. There's no position where I go. I simply stop being. But he also wrote, the strange thing is that being conscious, being able to think and feel and wonder, this is the most puzzling thing in the universe. We're made of atoms. We're matter. And yet we experience. We have an inside life. How does matter become aware of itself? He never found an answer. Nobody has. This is the hard question of consciousness. How does physical stuff, neurons, chemicals, electricity, give rise to personal experience? How does matter become mind? We can describe what the brain does. We can map neural activity. We can match brain states with mental states, but we can't explain why there's something it feels like to be a brain, why there's an inside viewpoint. Feynman was fine with not knowing. It's a puzzle. Maybe brain science will solve it. Maybe it needs a new kind of physics. Maybe it's unsolvable. But it's a real puzzle, not a magical one. It's a science question, even if we don't know the answer yet. What he was sure about, consciousness, doesn't have a position. It's not in your head, in your heart, in your soul. It's what your brain does. And what your brain does is spread, complex, emerging. You are not positioned anywhere. You are a process, an activity, a design of matter and energy that for a short time knows it exists. And when the design dissolves, when the brain stops, you don't go anywhere. You simply stop being a design. So where is your mind really? Not in your head, not in your body, not floating above you or hiding in some non-physical realm. Your mind is what your brain does. It's a process, not a place, an activity, not a thing, a design that comes from billions of neurons firing in matched ways. The sensation of being positioned behind your eyes, that's built. It's part of your brain's model of reality. Helpful for moving and interacting, but not a basic truth about consciousness. You can change where you feel positioned. Sensory loss, virtual reality, meditation, brain stimulation, all these can shift your sense of self-position because that sense is built from information, not hardwired, and your mind reaches beyond your brain, into your body, into your tools, into your surroundings. You are not an isolated consciousness trapped in a skull. You're an embodied, placed, extended process. Richard Feynman found this not through magic, but through science, through testing, through honest watching of what happens when you remove sensory input or change awareness or study harmed brains. And his conclusion was clear. There is no where to your mind. The question itself is based on a wrong idea. Minds don't have positions because minds aren't things. You are not in your body. You are your body, or more exactly, you are what your body, especially your brain, is doing. And what it's doing is creating an experience, the experience of being you, the experience of having a viewpoint, the experience of being positioned somewhere. But that experience is the mind, and the mind has no position. That's Feynman's shocking finding. Not that your mind is somewhere unexpected, but that it's nowhere at all. And once you grasp that, your whole sense of self shifts. You're not a thing in a place. You're a happening, a process, a temporary design of matter that knows it exists, and that's more strange and wonderful than any ghost in any machine could ever be.